Hello, and welcome to another wonderful episode of Submitted for Your Approval, the weekly card review show for Collective, the community-created card game where you, only you, make the cards. I'm joined today by my faithful co-host, Reef.
Howdy, folks.
And my me co-host, Empty Folder.
Hello, everyone.
I don't know why your name's like that. I'm just going to jump straight into it with the accepted submissions. These are cards that are in the collection currently, starting with Spooky Visitor, a 3-drop spirit, 3/3 undead from nowhere in particular. With Summon, create a random candy, and when you play a candy, give your opponent a tricky treat. This is mined if you are. So that triggered ability and then a passive really annoys me, but whatever. Because it doesn't read right. Tricky Treat, so the candies are the candies from Zucros. Tricky Treat is at the end of the turn, if this is in your hand, take 1 damage and banish this one, play it. So really, really cute, really, really interesting source of candies, but also a source of potential little hand trap stuff like this. We don't have a lot of stuff like this in the game currently, and so I just kind of wanted to highlight this as an interesting addition. And the art on the main token here is fantastic, amazing work from Dolly and from Spike. Grief, what do you think of this?
To be honest, I don't really have too much of an opinion on the candy slash kind of food deck. So for me, this is just a card, whatever. Been a little bit out of the loop January, so for me, this is just a candy supporter that's a 3/3 with Chroma Mind, and that's it. Not really much to talk about from my part, so sorry.
No, you're fine. Empty, what do you think of this?
Yeah, it's kind of unfortunate that candy ended up getting split down the middle between two affinities like this, but this is one way of going about fixing that issue. Other than that, it's like another sort of candy supporter that plays into this weird like trap sub theme that they had. It's interesting. I think the Tricky Treat is a little bit weak for what you're doing. Like the standard decks right now are very strong. I don't think 1 damage is really going to cut it in that environment.
I mean, if you could candy or combo a couple candies together, I think that could be a little impressive. They have to pick some combination. This is sort of the mind game stuff you want for Verstalt, right? They're playing the game of how many of these things can I afford to hold on to, or there's definitely a lot of choices, clever choices involved with this.
Yeah, you want your opponent to like spend out their mana as much as possible before you go for this, because then you're guaranteed to get some damage.
Definitely a lot of interesting plays come from this sort of thing. First Knight Frank is a 3-drop Mind 3/2 Cat Rogue Knight from Saga with Fast and Summon. If the first card you played this turn was another Furrst or Knight, choose and force play a 1 or less cost unit in your deck. So, I mean, I've already kind of made my stance on the First Knights. I think they're goofy. I don't really. Well, and there's a typo. I think that there's already a bug fix on for that.
I've already seen the typo on the card, which is unfortunate.
Yeah. So, Grief, what do you think of this card?
It's definitely a decent Knight support, especially since you can play Sigil into this to get your to get out an the 1-drop cat, which allows you to then at the end of the turn draw 2 cards, put her back on the top of your deck.
Oh,
Lola. Refilling your hand, or you can go for Barry to actually get more cost reduction up for the next turn. So this is definitely a very good way of actually doing a tutor for the archetype, because it forces you to actually play a tribal or an archetype deck to then find this a specific that is needed. And for the future, every kind of knight that is actually a good utility tool on the 1-cost body can actually fall under this search.
Empty, what do you think of this?
It's fine. I mean, it sort of plays into that. Like it's a very high roller card, but that's already like that's basically First Knight's sort of whole space. and it doesn't really make it much worse. So it's a fine support card for the deck. The one costs in that deck are very strong, so it's good to have a tutor for them.
Mm-hmm.
Also, it's a generic one-cost tutor, so you can, if you find the good utility tool, fill a space with whatever you want.
Yeah. Negatus is an elemental horror with untargetable, and when a unit blocks, it loses 3 attack this turn, and this has deadly while attacking. Whoa. This is spooky. A nice contribution from Entropic Mage. Always love to see his stuff. Oh, sorry. Negatus is a 4-drop, mine 3/5 elemental horror. Yeah, cool stuff. Empty, what do you think of this?
Yeah, I think this card was like already put up for a pre-nerf, or it was at least discussed.
Really?
Yeah. It's a really interesting effect, though. I really like this way of like it's pseudo unblockable. Because like you can still prevent the damage, but your units are basically going to do nothing in retaliation when they're blocking. Which is a really interesting design space, and that as untargetable, so it's hard for your opponent to just answer your board affecting card. It's a really cool design. I really like it.
Mm-hmm. Reef, what do you think of this?
It's like the best mid-range / control mind beatdown card that I've seen in the recent fucking years. And that's a good thing, because we really, really, really seldom get these kinds of cards. Already a nerf? Why?
Because it doesn't care if it...
Card.
So if I understand correctly, that first ability doesn't care that it blocks or that's, I guess it's the second ability. Doesn't care that it blocks Negatus, or doesn't even care whether it's an ally or enemy unit, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just when anything blocks.
Exactly.
Yeah, so when a unit blocks, that is really pretty powerful in my opinion. I mean, it's sort of a, not quite a mayhem effect, but it's
kind of, basically it is the best kind of thing that you can, either for an aggro deck where you just drop this turn 4, full swing, your opponent can't really efficiently block anymore, to break control stalls. You can use this as a control deck yourself, where you just put this down, attack phase for probably 3 damage / kill any kind of good supportive unit or blocker that your opponent can put up. Whereas it hinders you as a control deck to efficiently block yourself. So that's the trade-off. Meaning, if this is your only unit or one of 2 units, this is perfectly fine. If you have 2 of these fuckers and dropped in a very aggressive or mid-range shell, you will be having a field day, as long as you're the person with a foot on the gas. So in that case, this is more tempo. This just wants to play out further advantage that you already generated.
Yeah. Cool
I
card.
like this card.
The Stone Reef Guard. Oh, so these are active submissions. These are not in the game yet, so don't go try and add them to decks. But you can, if they get voted in, and you can do that yourself. You can vote cards, and then that'll improve the chance to getting in. Stone Reef Guard is a 2-drop spirit 1/1 fish snake knight from Osagarth with summon. Put the bottom unit on top of the deck and give it barrier, and it has barrier. What is barrier? Barrier is when this takes damage, instead of losing HP, this loses barrier. So Spectral has been pitching a lot of these designs. Spectral's been going a little nuts in the card lab recently with a bunch of things that care about barrier. And I didn't think those designs were that interesting, because it's a random, I mean, it's not a keyword that's already in the game. It's a keyword that disappears, and it's kind of weird to care about it. Overall, I didn't like those designs a lot. But this one was actually kind of interesting. So it has barrier. It's a nice 2-drop 1/1 with barrier, but it also has a way for you to just make sure your next draw is a unit, which can be pretty interesting. And although it is in spirit, which is a little awkward, it is a fish. So this being a fish that can move units to the top of your deck was kind of cool. And it's also just kind of a cool mechanic in general, so I wanted to talk about it. MT, what do you think of this?
Yeah, so I'm gonna assume barrier works.
Yeah, I don't.
Because so it like we definitely tried something like barrier before and it had problems. I'm just
It
gonna
was
assume
Endure.
this person.
It was how Endure
Endure,
originally
I think
worked.
stock had issues as well because there were stock designs that try to combine Endure and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But continue.
So yeah, so I like the idea behind this card. Issues I have with it. One, the wording is really weird. You could have said like put the bottom unit in your deck on top of your deck.
Yeah.
Like it's you're at uncommon, you have some extra space to work with. It's also just very weak. Like we have a lot of 2-mana options that actually draw a card instead of putting it on top of the deck. And yeah, you are giving it barrier, but you're only sort of tutoring since it's a unit, so it's just like a soft tutor. So it's gonna be very hard to choose what you want to get. And of course, if you're running 3 of these, like you could get another one of these, and then the barrier is completely wasted. I assume these don't stack. Yeah, I think it could use a bump up, either whether in stats or just make it draw the card instead of putting it on top of that.
Yeah. Yeah. One quick minor note is the barrier's type should be keyword because it is just a keyword. I don't know about it stacking or anything on that. I could see it actually going either way depending on how it's blocked, but as we just talked about, this probably doesn't even work because this is old school Endure, and old school Endure did not work. That's why it had to get changed. Grief, what do you think of this?
I've seen a few barrier designs on the SOP, and I've kind of skipped voting wise and interest wise because I don't fucking know if barrier works or not. So I'm not going to gamble on it. You jump back to Negatus. The only thing that I really like about it, it's a knight that digs up a card and gives it some form of effect.
Oh yeah.
Outside of that, it's basically just a knight that digs through your deck.
Mm-hmm.
Knight support. Cool. That's basically my point on this.
Well, it's sitting at 8, so I guess we're going to figure out if barrier does actually work very, very soon. Bibzbin Spellbook is a 3-drop mind exclusive artifact book from Saga. With fetch a card, this gets +1 cost and returns to hand. At the start of the game, if your deck has 1 copy of this and 50 cards total, store up to 5 other random cards you have 1 of. This gains a Nate. So store fetch, cool, interesting design, but like I feel like first of all, there's 2 notes I had about this. First of all, it's sitting at 0, so that's the thing to know. It's sitting on a very misflavorful opportunity because this particular execution of supposed to be the artificial sideboard store fetch thing, it's a spell book that grabs non-spells. Like, I mean, we have a spell type. It would have been cool if it would have cared about that. That's obviously minor. It's mostly a flavorful concern. The other one, I don't know. I just don't feel like this is the right way to do this. And there's been a lot of other takes on this before, but Filthy Casual is a big friend of mine, and I really I feel like this card has good bones on it. And so I just kind of wanted to pitch it to you guys and see what you thought of it. Grief, what do you think of this?
This is a champion as an action.
Mm-hmm. It's it's kind of a signature type thing, almost.
It's champion as an action, and the kind of effect that it does, it's like you basically care like probably only about the first 1 or 2 fetches, unless you're going for the long term, where you have to play a specific cards in a specific order. So yeah, all your 5 cards that you're storing will be part of your combo. Outside of that, this is basically just the toolbox.deck that you're playing. Kind of playing a 44 card deck with 5 options that you can start from in your hand. whenever you want to use them. The last time we had, I've seen such a card design being implemented was in Force of Will with Scheherazade #2, with a grimoire that you can build at the start of the game. And it was so broken as fuck that that she was kind of being the boogeyman in 3 different formats. Because her kit was so open-ended that you can play her with anything. The only caveat to this card is that it is 3-cost mind exclusive, which you don't give a shit about if your combo is mana agnostic, meaning that regardless of what you pay into it, as long as the pieces work into each other, can be cost reduced in some form or fashion, this will just go nuts.
I don't know. I feel people maybe have some legitimate concerns about this, but the fact that it's already 3 mana just to grab a card. Yeah, it's a 3 mana tutor for something you already have 1 copy of in your whole deck. I don't know. I think people are maybe reacting.
No. This stores cards. You start with a 50-card deck.
Yeah.
Removes 5 cards from your deck.
If you play a lockbox, this just became a 1 mana tutor.
Exactly.
Oh. Yeah, I see.
This is a tutor that starts in your hand that sets up your store. That doesn't mean you cannot play fucking store or fetch cards.
Yeah. Plus, like, the store happens regardless of whether you keep this in your hand or not. Yeah. If like you're playing Legacy or something and 3 mana is like way too much for a tutor, you can just toss it and then play Lockbox later, and you look at that. All your combo pieces are already ready to go.
Yeah. Empty, what do you think of this?
Yeah, so this design has potential, but there's like a lot of really bad implications that this version of it in particular has that I think are like negatively affecting the vote count. I mean, like me and Grief just talked about, like lockbox with this is really insane, and it's usually better. This card is better if you don't play it and you just pitch it and use the store that you just made for yourself. I actually like the idea of having some sort of restriction, like spells or actions or something, so you can't just have like your combo list in the book ready to go. There's actually some thought that's going to need to go into what cards you're putting in the book.
This could be a very interesting legendary from Saga if it actually only cared about Saga cards to be stored.
I don't like Realm Matters, but I can see your point. Some sort of restriction would be cute. But yeah, this basically goes back down to the old Second Sunrise problem of free value at the beginning of the game. Probably just gonna cause problems. Even if it's an innate thing. So yeah, I see what you guys are saying. I definitely think that Filthy should try and this design a little bit and see if they can come up with a better sort of take on it. The Chrono-Purifier is a 5-drop neutral 4/6 human arcanist from Alter Chrono with Duelist, Ambush, and when the opponent draws a Jinx card, give it Ethereal. So I do like, so we have a lot of Jinx stuff in the game now, and this basically takes Jinx and just sort of dials it up a little bit. First of all, solid 4/6 neutral Duelist Ambusher. I mean, that's good limited fodder. But with the Jinx support, the Jinx, supposing this works, because it's actually kind of quirky, because Jinx, there's no cards in your hand, or once you draw a Jinx card, it flips to not have Jinx anymore. But supposing the order of operations was blocked correctly, and it basically does trigger the Jinx and give you Ethereal.
Yeah,
I think this is a really, really interesting take on a design for that archetype. Empty, what do you think of this?
it's a really cool design. It really needs to cost less though. Like against aggro decks, turn 5 is usually when they're like throwing out their hand and don't really care about getting Ethereal. And control decks are just going to silence this for like 2 mana. And at 5, like that's a really bad deal for you, basically. if this were like aggressively costed, this could be a really cool tool for Jinx decks to like really screw with your opponent, especially because we have the card that like jinxes the next top 3 cards your opponent draws. That could be a really cool sort of control deck. And you could run like lock cards to take away your opponent's mana to make sure they lose their cards.
Grief, what do you think of this?
This could be such a cool support card, but it needed to be upscaled to fit in Duelist and Ambush as well, for whatever reason. I understand that Acoustic is trying to push for some hard control, hand disruption stuff with an auto design way back when as well for Jinx. I personally still think of Jinx, it's a burn deck. Why not actually accelerate its plan and help it out in early game to actually get to a point where you don't need these big dinguses in the middle of your game plan. You can push them out sooner, so your Jinx plan of burning your opponent to death by drawing cards that are jinxed and making them useless would happen like 2 to 3 turns earlier.
Yeah,
because
I agree with
that's
you
your
guys.
end game.
Push it backward a little bit would probably be really cool. Yeah. The Mountain Shadow is a 20-drop spirit exclusive 8/8 Shadow Titan from HPL with overrun, and when an allied unit attacks, give this -1 cost wherever it is. So this is kind of like a fancy, like giant on steroids type thing. I feel like it's a big thing that's just trying to rely on getting its cost steadily reduced. The end result is kind of not too interesting. It's just an 8/8 overrunner. Art's really, really cool. But yeah, I don't think there's a whole lot to say on this because it's basically just like a French vanilla with extra steps, but maybe I'm wrong. Grief, what do you think of this?
It's a big idiot Timmy card. Put it into an aggro deck, draw it, let it still be like casting at 12 and crying. Go cry in your corner. This is just, yeah. If you like big gorillas or Galfas and shit, this is not it. Not even close. But have fun.
Mm-hmm.
Why is this exclusive?
Because cards with cost reduction generally, like the affinity matters a lot less. So to make it matter, they made it fixed to spirit.
Yeah,
right, because that's just one more attack proc. If it wasn't exclusive, that's just one more attack proc you need. So the affinity is practically meaningless at that point.
I mean, it's just, as I said, put it into an aggro deck. Every other deck doesn't care, and probably Mind would have the best, or Mind and Sven had the best tools to cheat a big dingus with only overrun in. And as I said, this is a big dingus Timmy card. Let Tim play with it in outer affinities as well. This could have been neutral for all I care.
Yeah,
Let's
I
be
can
honest.
see that argument. Empty, what do you think of this?
Yeah, I think the scenario Grief described, where you like draw in an aggro deck and it still costs 12 plus, is going to be far too common. 20 is like a lot to work through. I think Baluk is going to be the only one who can even think about running this. And even then, it's going to be a tough sell. You need to attack so much to get this to a reasonable cost.
Like, I don't know. I've been playing around with Personal Pests now since it got in. If this had like 2 more keywords, maybe, then I could see this as running it sort of like an alternative win con type thing. Maybe, I don't know. But yeah, this is just a big dumb Timmy card. This is it's a limited kind of thing. We don't have a limited format though.
If it at least had agile, then you could like surprise your opponents with like a 1-cost agile 8/8 overrun and get a win that way.
Agile fast would be fun. Horrific Visions. The Curse from Ultrachrona is a 3-drop mind Curse from Ultrachrona. Give a unit can attack and end a turn jinx 3 random cards in your deck. a great little lockdown strat with the added benefit of slowly cursing things. Not really all that much to say about it. Empty, what do you think of this?
Yeah, it's like there's imprisonment and
Yeah.
the candy deck, and this is sort of like the Alter Chrono version of it. It's like a perfectly fine removal design. Plays into that sort of control Jinx style deck. Yeah, I mean, it's just a good support card for the deck. Not much else to say.
Yeah. Grief, what do you think of this?
It's a Jinx support card.
I mean, you picked it.
Say more. It's a Jinx support card. It's a burn deck. It's a control piece for the burn deck. Whatever.
Oh, checking, and I realized I was off on my thing. It technically should have been Grief's turn first. Oh well. Grief, yeah, but Grief didn't pick it for any particular reason.
Nope. I thought you guys had more to say about it.
Yeah. I do wish it was cheaper. I wish it was at 2. I think it could be 2. But maybe I'm wrong. The Festivity Enforcer is a 3-drop strength 1/4 robot from Paradis with ambush, ward, and when a player plays a card that costs 3 or more, this deals 2 damage to them. If it costs 6 or more, they also lose 1 mana next turn. Absolutely great work from Stable Diffusion with Spike. It does still feel like it's actually when they arted up, so I think Spike probably took some liberties with it and modified some stuff, and boy is it beautiful. Feels I do kind of miss, I mean, there's always some complaints I had about Perotis, but I really do kind of like what this does for the old Perotis aesthetic. Feels sort of like what is it when Magic does like Modern Horizons or whatever, where they're flashing back to a bunch of old realms that nobody remembers.
Exactly.
This gives very much Modern Horizons vibes. So the when a player plays a card that costs 3 or more, this deals 2 damage. If it costs 6 or more, they also lose 1 mana. So basically, just making sure everyone either has to play cheap stuff or they have to hurt for it. Slows down decks that rely on a couple high drops. It's very, very interesting design. Empty, what do you think of this?
Yeah, I mean, this is a great design. I kind of would have wanted to see this card like post rotation, because I think it would be like a really fun card to have when we have a more like combat centric sort of meta, where I mean, I think the idea behind this card is that you have like this really beefy sort of anti-aggro body, and then the effect itself is punishing control decks, so you have sort of a versatility option on this card. Yeah, I just want to play with it more, basically, and I feel like in the current standard meta, it's going to have a hard time fitting in.
Okay. Grief, what do you think of this?
I've gone through many episodes and said repeatedly, I love stacks cards, and this is just right up my alley. This is the kind of card that I really wanted to see like years ago, where you just kind of play against anti-big stuff or mid-range decks and get some more chip damage in, or even tax them for playing bigger cards. As Empty pointed out, this is a card that will probably be better in a modern environment post-rotation than it is right now. Overall, I love to see this card get in first, but with a vote count at 2 or 3, it's looking pretty dismal so far.
Yeah. So not much to say on, yeah, I think we all just like this one. It's just cute. It's interesting. I'm going to read this wrong on purpose. Flame Armsman is a 2-drop spirit 2/1 elemental knight from Saga with scout and equipment, summon scout and equipment, and barrier. He's a flame arms man because he's got flame arms. The flavor on this particular one just feels kind of like cobbled together. But I mean, this is a pretty sound design. I wish it made the thing it scouted neutral at the very least, because that's a problem Scout had.
Yeah.
And when you talk about equipment in particular, you're talking about a tribe or a action tribe that's split more or less evenly between two affinities. But it does, yeah. Overall, though, just a really great kind of limited thing. I really wish it made it neutral. Besides that, I think it's fine. Grief, what do you think of this?
Should have scouted a card from your deck.
I like Scout. I know you want Scout a card from your deck for consistency tools, but
no, because Scout is a keyword or mechanic that really does not function with different formats.
Yeah.
Due to pool disparity, and let's be honest, you're just using this card either because you don't really matter what equipment you hit, or if the equipment pool in standard is so damn low that you're probably hitting the only 1 to 2 cards anyway. And at that point, why don't you just scout from your deck anyway? Because at that point, you are allowed to have the consistency of specific cards that you want to hit, and or if your equipment matters deck, you can actually use the pool of different equipments in your deck. If you have multiple equipments that are useful for you, like in Legacy. In Standard, this will only see play to grab specific equipments because the pool is too low.
MT, what do you think of this?
So yeah, it does have the scout issues, but this is more along the lines of what I think the barrier cards should be, more than the other one that like pulled the unit from the bottom of your deck. I think this is a lot better balanced than that one, since you're actually getting a card like into your hand, and that stat line at 2/1 is actually like pretty good when you have barrier attached to it, especially because with that equipment, you might be able to buff it up a bit. And barrier does really well with buffs like that, since you can get up to like double your value off the buff if you get 2 hits off thanks to the barrier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Really cool design. It's only sitting at 3. I would go around and up with that. But yeah, I think definitely staying with these simpler designs, especially rather than the barrier matters. I just think that's silly. And I honestly even
I haven't seen a single barrier matters one.
He was fishing around a lot in the card lab. Even if there were 20 barrier cards in game right now, I would still say don't do barrier matters. It's just silly. I don't personally. It's just awkward, but I don't know if that's what he wants to do. But again, with like the flavor, I just think the flavor on these is kind of like second, third, fourth consideration, and I don't know. Achron the Time Corruptor is a 6-drop neutral 5/4 demon horror object from Alter Chrono with ward, overrun, and summon. Jinx a number of random cards in the opponent's deck equal to this unit's attack tripled. And this gets +1/+1 for every 4 jinxes the opponent triggers wherever this is. This is like, first of all, jinx a number of random cards in the opponent's deck equal to this unit's attack tripled. That's their whole deck, almost, by the time this gets out.
Well, it depends how many they drew.
Well, like, or yeah, that's at least half their deck. Maybe way more. I don't know. I think that's a little just silly.
I mean, it's base 15. Let's say the jinx like they draw like 5 to 6 jinx cards over the course of the game. That's a +1, so it's 6 times 3. It's 18 cards.
Yeah.
That's still not really half the deck.
Yeah. Okay. But yeah, I mean, I definitely think it fills this big like splashy legendary role pretty well. This kind of reminds me of like a Vox. This is kind of like Vox from Alter Chrono, and I really like that part of the vibe. I feel like it should maybe have agile. I think agile or like ward overrun is weird. So this only exists to be summoned and then be a big guy. So why not agile? This doesn't have any sort of like passives or anything like that. But course, with the rules change, that will not matter one lick, so maybe this is fine. Grief, what do you think of this?
I'm just happy that this isn't a weird hand disruption version from way back when.
Definitely think this version's a lot better.
Yeah. The 4 Jinxes, wherever this is, I don't know how fast Jinx decks are. As I said, I don't really have an idea. That's why I put up some Jinx cards this episode. I put up a Jinx card and then is the deck any good? How fast can it generate? Is it turn 6 where you've already went to like 12 to 16 Jinxes and this game like +3 to +4 stats off of that? I don't have a clue. If it is, then holy shit, this is very cool at that point where, yeah, you have like 24 cards Jinx in your opponent's deck. If not more, then yeah, that's definitely half the deck. If it isn't that fast or only gets to like 6 to 7 Jinxes, not even or barely even making this second point of a second point of stats on it, and yeah, sure, you jinx a shit ton of cards, but I have a kind of useless beat stick on board. Because in the end of the day, you are a burn deck. This is a big dingus that can beat for the extra points of damage, but that's it. As I said, I don't understand the deck.
Yeah. Empty, what do you think of this?
Like huge upgrade from the previous version. This makes like way more sense than the Jinx deck, and has like a ton of other like cool and interesting synergies. Where like you have the potential to just like have an onboard like a passive buff, or just like hand buff this to make this like absolute nuts amount of jinxes that go off when you play this. Some really cool synergies, and I think just like a good card for the deck now, not something that is going to come down on turn 10 when you've already won.
Definitely.
All right, and that's gonna be my last card. I gotta head out.
Oh, okay. There's only one more. Oh well.
I know. I can't cut it any closer.
See ya,
Right.
Empty.
Bye.
Yeah, sorry, he had to go early today. Altering the Mosaic is a 3-drop neutral legend from Swiatlo with Chapter. And Chapter is on play, and at the start of each turn, advance to the next chapter and activate that chapter's effects. Chapter 1 creates a test subject, which is a 1/1 crab. Chapter 2 swaps 2 unit stats, and Chapter 3, an ally gets the abilities of another unit. So yeah, the Mosaic is that thing that the storyteller and some other stuff from Swiatlo had reflected before, and this sort of has that sort of vibe to it. You also get the a 1/1, which is pretty useful. I feel this is really, really cognizant or cohesive for a saga type design, and I absolutely love that. I did help or talk with Filthy a little bit about specifics on execution, and I think that a lot of people are concerned about sort of the text box problem, but I mean, this is a perfectly fine one sitting on an uncommon. It's just a matter of finding a way to get the individual abilities to sort of like click, and I think this one does that actually really, really well. Even if your test subject dies, you throw out another 1/1 or something really cool. It's neutral, so this gives you some sort of stuff for sort of a monster mash style thing with gonna do some weird shenanigans with merges or some other like there's definitely a lot of cool cute ideas you could definitely pull off with this. I really absolutely love this design. I didn't really get a close enough look at it last time. How is it doing though? Accidentally deleted it. Grief, what do you think of this?
I have to put something else first. I don't freaking understand what the obsession with people is regarding sagas. Sagas are such a damn boring design.
They're not though. I play around with them a lot. I mean, they're a big player in my cube. They play really, really great in limited. In every format I'm big into, sagas are awesome. Now, certain formats, slower formats, like commander type stuff, they're not as exciting, unless you have some sort of shenanigans to replay them or do something with that. But in faster formats, they're great. Well, mid-range formats. You can't get too fast, or else you can't obviously get your big ability off. But I think this
Also, this is like an uninteractive saga.
yeah, that is
Goes
kind of the
on.
drawback, but I think it's cleaner than like having the whole like unit sitting out there, the unit enchantment thing.
Yeah, that's also true. But yeah, whenever I saw a chapter design, I was like, whatever, it's just another saga. Like, we had like multiple attempts at these damn card design versions of sagas. This is like the cleanest and okay-ish one. You will probably switch the stats of test subject with an opponent's unit and then give test subject or another unit a useful ability from your opponent.
But yeah, really cool, really flavorful design. I'm glad that crab. I really hope this gets in because that old crab art I've always wanted to see that in. But also this is really pretty. I would love to play around with this mechanic more if this thing got in.
Is there a way to actually track the card in game? I haven't looked at the blocks because, as I said, I was not really too enthused about chapters. Do they give you an emote or some form of?
I'd imagine it just throws a reveal or something. At the very least, right? But yeah. Okie doke. So that was it for this week. That was all I had, at least. Thank you very much, Grief, for joining me. Sorry we've been out for a couple weeks, guys. I've been going through a lot of really rough stuff on my end, but things are about to get sorted soon, so we will see. So thank you, Grief, for joining me today.
Always nice to be here. Was a little bit busy myself, so it's a good challenge.
Yeah, guys, send Grief bottled water. The water on his house is down, so he needs water. And I would thank Empty, but Empty isn't here. So Empty, if you went all the way back through this video and just watched the video, thank you. And thank you guys. Thank you, our loyal viewers, for watching us, even though we've been like gone more often than not for the past couple months. We've been having all this hectic stuff going on. So like, comment, and subscribe. Remind me why I'm doing this. Feel free to ping me on Discord. Just tell me a funny joke. And keep on playing collective and keep on voting on cards. Bye.
See ya.